I'm not sure why I'm doing this, but here I am. I am going to be going over every single status effect in My Hero Ultra Impact so far. This was a requested video by a couple of people, so I thought, why not? And honestly, guys, this is going to take a minute. There are so many status effects in the game. I might just read some of them. I might kind of elaborate on some of them, the ones that are more confusing for people and stuff like that. Some of them are self-explanatory, like, for example, hit rate up. That's pretty simple. It increases hit rate of status elements, so like straightforward, right? And we can move on to the next one, and I'll just kind of go, and if I need to add things in, I'll add things in and explain them, like the difference between power and skill impact and things like that. So recovery restores HP, obviously. Remove buffs cancels all temporary buffs. This one I will explain a little bit more. You cannot remove permanent buffs, so if there's not a counter like it says for X amount of turns or something like that, then you cannot remove that buff. That means that is a permanent buff, and a permanent buff is different from a temporary buff, and you can only currently remove temporary buffs in game. A good example of a character who can remove buffs would be the new Uraraka, who has the AoE remove buffs, which is really good, and why she's so OP right now. Well, just part of the reason at least. Next, we have hit rate down, increases hit rate of status ailments. That doesn't seem right. This doesn't, hold on, that's not right. Hit rate down. That should say decreases hit rate of status elements. Okay, that's Hydros, work on your website, but that should definitely say decreases. Hit rate up, increases hit rate of status elements. This should say decreases. So we're not too far in, it already found an error, but that's okay. Remove status changes, cancels X status elements. Okay, simple enough. Remove buffs, cancels X temporary buffs. Okay, once again, simple and straightforward. We have removed buffs here twice though. I just went over this, so yep. Anyways, continuing down the list here, confusion hit rate down, lower chance of confusing the opponent when using the skill. Burn hit rate down, lower chance of burning the opponent when using the skill. Bleed hit rate down, lower chance of causing the opponent to bleed when using the skill. So you'll see these like hit rate downs a lot when you lower an enemy's ability to bleed or lower an enemy's ability to burn. Actually, more often than not, it happens to you when you're taking on like a VE tower, where it's going to lower your burn rate and stuff like that, but you will see stuff like that. Paralysis hit rate down, same thing, lowers chance of paralyzing the opponent. Bind hit rate, same thing, lowers chance of binding. Freeze hit rate, lowers chance of freezing. Charm hit rate down, lowers chance of charming, you know, so on and so forth. Blind hit rate down, lowers chance of blinding. Fear hit rate down, lowers chance of fearing. Frost hit rate down, lowers chance of causing frostbite. And Hellfire hit rate down, lowers chance of landing Hellfire. Okay, now we get into a few more things. So Hellfire, what is that? Take the amount of burning damage character would have taken in remaining turns of the effect all at once, then cancel the burning. This effect can have critical damage. So this is like a big one, probably one of the most important status elements in the game for My Hero Ultra Impact, because a lot of times, especially like in the most recent Club Fest, people are like, how did you hit that amount of damage? How'd you get that many points in Club Fest? Well, a lot of it was honestly the white-haired Dobby doing his Hellfire, because Hellfire can break the damage cap, because it takes all the damage from burns that would have happened over the next 3 turns or 6 turns, because there are 6 turn burns in the game, and applies it all in 1 turn. And then if you hit a critical hit with increased skill impact, that does even more damage, right? And we'll talk about what skill impact is here in a little bit when we get down to it, but like basically Hellfire is the way to break the damage cap in the game, and probably one of the most important status elements, so keep that in mind. Next, we have recovery. I feel like we've already said this. I'm almost 100% sure it was up above. Cancel status elements is here twice. What is going on with the website? I guess I haven't ever looked that closely at this, but yeah, cancel status elements. Surprise, surprise, cancel status elements. We have power down, resist up. So these are all your resistances. You're going to lowers the chance of getting power down, so it increases your chance of resisting basically. So power down, resist up. Defense down, resist up. Speed down, resist up, meaning they can't speed you down or they're not as likely to speed you down, right? Max HP down, resist up, resist up. I'm not going to go through all these. I'm skipping these. You guys get the picture, okay? You get the picture for those. Let's get into the real things here that are important. So starting with power up, okay, you will see these from here on. You'll see these icons in battle. You'll see them above characters' heads. If you go into the menu, you can see these icons as well, or at least it talks about them them. So power up increases character's power by X%. Power up is a fairly important status element because basically what that does is it takes your base stat numbers and raises them for your character. So anytime you see a character that says increases power by X amount, that is good, and that is going to raise your base stats overall, essentially just making your character stronger. Next, you have defense up. That's the same thing, taking your base defense stats, raising them up by a certain percentage, whatever that percentage is for the character when you look at the skill. Speed up, same thing, takes your speed stats, raises it for your character. Then we have critical hit rate up, takes your crit hit rate. Every character has a crit hit rate of like 10, 15, something, you know, base crit rate. Some of them have 20. It just depends on the character, right? Some characters have higher base crit rate than others, and you get more crit rate from doing trust. By the way, if you guys haven't done your trust levels, as you increase your trust levels, it can increase your critical hit rate for that specific character. So make sure you're working on your trust. But critical hit rate up, pretty simple, increases your critical hit rate by whatever percentage that skill says. And then you have plus ultra gauge up, which once again increases your plus ultra gauge, really important. So these two are probably some of the most important effects in game as well when it comes to VE tower, because you have critical hit rate up and plus ultra gauge rate up, which are going to help you a lot in VE tower. And then you have the cover and aggro. These two kind of go hand in hand, really. So cover, all single attacks from opponents are drawn to the character. Aggro, all single attacks from the opponent are drawn to the character. They are literally the same thing, just different names for whatever reason. And then damage down reduces damage to character by whatever percentage. You'll see this like on Kirishima. I believe he has damage down. I think he has damage down and defense up. I think he has both. The fantasy Kirishima is who I'm thinking of. So you'll get damage down, which reduces the amount of damage you take overall by a certain percentage. Couple that with, you know, defense up, and it makes your character very tanky. And then you have phase damage down, which is a little bit different. Nullifies damage taken right before phase transitions. This does not apply to your characters. This only really applies in climax battle to the climax battle character, which would be like Best Genist or All for One or any of the climax battle characters that are currently in the game as you're going through climax battle. This does not apply to your climax battle character in your box, of course. It only applies to the enemy when you're taking on climax battle. Evasion gives the character the ability to dodge attacks. Pretty straightforward, not going to explain that one. Barrier gives character a barrier that nullifies attacks. Once again, not going to explain that. And damage-based HP restoration. Character's HP is restored by percentage of damage taken. I feel like that's also self-explanatory. A lot of these are self-explanatory, right? And so it's just, I'm going through the list of all the status effects again. There are so many, right? So I'm going to kind of go over skip the ones, once again, that are self-explanatory. Ecstatic. This one might confuse people. Increases rate at which character's plus ultra gauge fills up by X percentage. So this is different from just plus ultra gauge up, which you saw above. Ecstatic basically increases the speed that your plus ultra gauge fills up at. So every turn it'll be filling up that much faster if that's what the effect says, or for however many turns it says. If you're ecstatic for 3 turns, 5 turns, whatever, that means for each of those turns your plus ultra gauge, I think it's like 40% or 50% base. I don't know, I would have to look, but it's a decent percentage, so it's actually raising your score by quite a bit or your plus ultra gauge by quite a bit with ecstatic. Next we have plus ultra gauge charging up. Okay, so increases rate at which character's plus ultra gauge fills up. These are just 2 names for the same thing, by the way. Okay, so they have the same symbol. I don't know why Fa Jin has the same symbol as these, because it is not the same thing. I think they're different in game. I think the symbols look different in game. Maybe I'm honestly colorblind, so maybe these arrows are different colors. I don't know. Is this red and this green? I don't know. They look the same to me. Anyways, Fa Jin, current level X, a counter that increases when various conditions are met and gives you various effects relative to the current count. Okay, so basically what Fa Jin is right here is it's just a counter. And that's what it is. As simple as that. And then based on the character's kit, you'll get different effects from Fa Jin. And the only character that currently uses Fa Jin in the game right now is Vigilante Deku, and he's just a whole different natured beast than any other character in the game. So I would have to literally explain his whole kit to explain what Fa Jin does for him. So basically, in its simplest form, Fa Jin is just a counter. Last Stand gives you a last stand. Once only allows character to keep fighting with 1 HP after being knocked out. Character doesn't actually get knocked out, quote unquote. They are almost knocked out. I don't know why it says after being knocked out. They're almost knocked out essentially, but they survive with 1 HP and they're able to keep fighting. Let's say they get down to 1 HP, Last Stand activates, and then another character punches that character who just had the Last Stand activated. The Last Stand is gone now and your character will die. So unless you have an extra Last Stand. Last Stands can stack, which is important to note, which can give your character more survivability. Last Stand, I think, is perhaps better than Persistence when you can stack it, but when you just have 1 Last Stand, it's kind of meh, and then Persistence becomes better. The reason I don't like Persistence that much, though, is because your character is guaranteed to survive, but then is also guaranteed to die after 3 turns, unless the Persistence gets removed, because it's technically a buff, I believe, and you can have buffs removed. So unless the enemy removes your Persistence buff from you, it helps you stay alive. So yeah, Last Stand technically better if it's stacked, but not as good with just 1 Last Stand. Next, you have Double Attack. Gives the character the ability to use 2 normal attacks. Pretty simple, straightforward. Resilience is one that definitely confuses people. Resilience, the lower the character's HP, the more their power increases. So in other words, as your health drops, you are going to get higher base stats, meaning your character is going to have more defense and more speed. Or sorry, not more defense, not more speed. Sorry, the more their power increases, only their power. So sorry, they are going to have more attack. I don't know, I was thinking defense and speed. But the lower the character's HP gets, the more their attack is going to be raised and the more damage they're going to do. So that's what Resilience does. See, Resilience even trips me up sometimes. Composure, the higher the character's HP, the more their power increases. So Composure and Resilience are the opposite of each other. So Composure does the same thing, increases your base stats, but only if you have more HP. Then you have Hide. Hide is really OP and really good, like especially on Fantasy Sue. If you have used her or gone against her, character cannot be targeted for single attacks by opponents. The only way to get to a hiding character is to remove buffs, or to use AoE attacks. And then you have the counter, which you have seen on Kirishima, you see it on the new Flex. A bunch of characters actually have counter, and this makes a counter attack after taking a normal attack. And then you have Skill Impact Up, increases character skill impact by X%. This is what I'm going to explain because Skill Impact Up is different from Power Up, which we talked about before. Skill Impact Up, basically what it does is it's going to take the damage number that you already get. So let's say you hit the enemy for 10,000 damage. It's going to take that 10,000 damage and multiply that number by whatever percentage and make it that much more damage. Okay, so if you were to ask me what's better, Skill Impact Up or Power Up, I would, depending on the percentage, I might say Skill Impact Up. Having more skill impact is better, and that's like, once again, how I was saying, people are breaking those damage numbers in Club Fest to hit massive amounts of damage because they have so much skill impact up. There are memories that can give you like critical skill impact by 50% increase. So that's just going to make you hit like a freight train. Okay, so if you were to ask me what's better, Power Up or Skill Impact Up, I would say Skill Impact Up. Power Up increases your base stats, but Skill Impact takes the damage that's already there and multiplies it by a percentage, which is a little bit better. Hopefully that, I have explained that in a previous video, but if you didn't know that, hopefully that helps you out a little bit. I think that's probably going to be the most useful piece of information in this video, in my personal opinion, but you know, let me know in the comments below. Kind of same thing here for Action Skill Impact Up, increases character skill impact by X% for action skills. So this is the same thing as before for increases skill impact by X%, but it's specifically for action skills. Same thing for this one, but it's specifically for plus ultra moves. Okay, and then we have cooldown time down, decreases characters cooldown times. Not going to explain that, that's pretty simple and straightforward, right? HP regeneration restores X% of characters HP per turn. Once again, simple. Status element nullification nullifies bad status elements to characters. Once again, pretty simple, straightforward. Power down immunity. These are all immunities right here, meaning you can't be powered down, you can't have your defense lowered, you can't have your speed lowered, max HP lowered, critical hit rate lowered, skill damage lowered, plus ultra gauge lowered, or skills sealed at all. A lot of times characters actually don't have complete immunity. I don't know if any characters besides maybe like Kirishima, but even then Kirishima doesn't have full stun immunity when he drops below a certain amount of health. But most characters don't have like a full immunity to any one thing unless you're taking on a bot. The bots in the game are going to have these immunities. The enemies, the bosses are going to have these immunities, but like your characters themselves typically don't have full immunity. There are a couple of characters that have immunities or to like one thing, but for the most part, yeah, not too many characters have like immunity to multiple things at a time. Then we have confusion immunity, burn immunity, bleed immunity, paralysis immunity, blind immunity, freeze immunity, charm immunity, and they just have the same symbol for all of them, right? I think we already said blind immunity, so that's in here twice again. Yep, just pointing out the errors. Hydros, use this video, fix your website, please. I love your website, by the way, man. Really do appreciate it. I'm sure everybody in the community does. Just want to see it flourish. Meat lump immunity, frostbite immunity, stun immunity, max HP. Oh, okay, so we're done with immunities. I was just going down the list. Okay, max HP up. Increases characters max HP by X percentage. So this takes your base health, and it's kind of the same thing as like what I was saying before with power up, but this time it's HP, and it raises your base HP by whatever percentage. And so basically it gives you a bigger health pool than you already had. So, and a lot of times this is temporary when characters do max HP up. I'm thinking of like Summer, Ochako, or Araka. She'll raise your base health, and so let's say you lose some of that health over the next 2 or 3 turns, and then after this max HP up goes away, it doesn't matter because it was just extra health you wouldn't have had anyways, even if you lost the health. So max HP up can actually be a pretty good status element or status effect, and it's kind of hard to explain. And like I wish I should really be putting in like a clip to show you guys what I mean, but it's hard to show clips of these specific things, you know. So hopefully you guys understand what I mean when I'm explaining these. Then we have all the counters, right? So status element counter confuses the opponent when attacked, burns the opponent when attacked. So these are all just the different status element counters, and we don't have too many of like, I don't think we have confuse and burn on characters right now that we have in the game that we can use, that I know of off the top of my head. At least I know we do have paralysis counter with like Fantasy Kirishima. I know we have the freeze counter. I don't know if we have burn or confuse counter, so but I know enemies in the game obviously do. And then you have more status element counters here for all these other things. We definitely have meat lump counter, right? So we'll just kind of keep going through these. Basically, when you get attacked, though, you're going to counter by turning the enemy into a meat lump or freezing them or whatever else is listed there. High chance of confusing the opponent when attacked. Medium chance of confusing the opponent when attacked. So all the different chances of landing your status element counter. High chance of burning, medium chance of burning, low chance of burning, high chance of paralyzing, medium, low. High chance of freezing, medium, low. Okay. High chance of turning into a meat lump, medium, low. And then we have the skill sealed, resist up. Lowers chance of getting skills sealed, which is good, right? It doesn't need explanation, okay? Unfortunately, like none of this really needs explanation. Confusion, resist up, lowers chance of getting confused. Burn, resist up, lowers chance of getting burned. Bleed, resist up, lowers chance of bleeding. Paralysis, resist up, lowers chance of getting paralyzed. Blind, resist up, lowers chance of getting bound. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going now. Freeze, resist up, lowers chance of getting frozen, lowers chance of getting charmed, lowers chance of blinding, lowers chance of becoming afraid. And then we have meat lump resist, lowers chance of turning into a meat lump, which is actually pretty useful because turning into a meat lump is actually probably the most annoying of all these. Lowers chance of getting frostbite for frostbite resist, lowers chance of burning in Hellfire, lowers chance of getting stunned. And then now we're past all those, okay, and we're on to another effect, Camouflage. Camouflage is similar kind of in my opinion to hide, but what it does, medium chance that characters attack will miss, does not affect plus ultra moves or skills that strike all opponents. So basically anytime a single targeted attack comes your way, similar to the hide, except for, so hide keeps you from being targeted. With camouflage you can be targeted, but they have a pretty good chance to miss and their attack's not going to hit you anyways with a single targeted attack. So the only thing that can make camouflage a little bit better honestly would be to have it be a high chance that characters attacks will miss, and then it's just pretty much hide. So I see why they did medium chance. So basically camouflage is like a worse version of hide in my opinion, but it is still decent. Not a lot of characters have camouflage though in the game. Sue has Camouflage, I believe. Not all the Sues, there's a couple of different Sues, but some of the Sues have Camouflage. Critical hit impact up, increases critical skill impact by X% when landing a critical hit. So this is another example of increasing your skill impact, which takes the base number, whatever you have, and multiplies it by whatever percentage there. But in this case, it's only for critical hits. So this is what I was talking about before with Dobby. If you land a critical hit with Dobby, it'll take that number, let's say it's 80,000 damage, multiply it by whatever percentage here, and it could turn it into 200,000 damage, which can be very, very good, right? So any memories in the game, any characters that increase skill impact, critical skill impact more specifically, are very good. Dealt damage restore. Character's HP is restored by the amount of damage dealt. We don't have too many characters in the game like this. I'm thinking we'll get more eventually, which would be interesting, but we'll have to see how that one ends up playing out. Critical damage down reduces damage to character by whatever percentage when receiving a critical hit. Skill damage down reduces damage to character by whatever percentage for skill. So this is just, you know, pretty straightforward right here. Action skill damage down, you don't take as much damage from action skills. Plus ultra move damage down, you don't take as much damage from plus ultra moves. All of these ones right here, you'll see more on like the EX skill slot for characters. And you can get different rules for like 10%, 3%, 7%, 20%, whatever. There's different percentages for all these, right? And then normal attack impact up, increases skill impact by X% for normal attacks. Once again, this is going to be one that's like, I believe, on the attack slot of EX skills. And then normal attack damage down reduces damage to character from normal attacks. That's on the defense slot. Reduces burning and bleeding damage but to character by X%. These are all pretty much EX skill things right here that you're going to get from like the helmets that you put on your character. So just keep that in mind. That's what all these are, and they reduce the amount of damage you take from particular things, whether they be status elements, normal attacks, plus ultra moves, action skills, whatever. Okay, moving on, we have Persistence and Overwhelm. These two came out at the same time. They are very different from each other. Persistence allows the character to keep fighting with 1 HP after getting knocked out. Character gets knocked out at the end of the effect. When attacking, character adds X% of the HP lost to the attack damage. So this can make characters like, you know, Fantasy Deku hit for 99,000 consistently, but he is only going to live for roughly 3 turns, and then at that point when the effect ends, the character gets knocked out. Unless, like I was saying before, you remove the persistence by removing that, because this is technically a buff, by removing that buff, and then you get the benefit of surviving along with the extra damage. So yeah, nice when that happens. Doesn't happen too often though. Overwhelm increases damage to an opponent by a set amount for however many or more temporary buffs character has than said opponent. This works really well with friendly reinforcements, the memory, because that stacks temporary buffs, and that memory can be thrown on pretty much any character to make them infinitely stronger. But it also works really well on Bakugo, Fantasy Bakugo, if you've ever used him, obviously, because he has Overwhelm. Reduces damage received by an opponent by a set amount for however many more temporary buffs character has than said opponent. It says this twice, I think. Yeah, it literally says the same thing. Oh, no, never mind. It's this one increases damage, this one reduces damage. Okay, so yeah, that is correct. So yeah, it reduces the amount of damage you take and increases your damage. That's really good. Overwhelm is OP, right? Then we have Confusion hit rate up. Higher chance of causing the opponent to become confused. Same with all these. We have Burn hit rate up, Bleed hit rate up, Paralysis hit rate up, Bind, Freeze, Charm, Blind, Fear, Frostbite, Hellfire, and Stun hit rate up. Okay, next we have Bullseye. Bullseye is really good. Attacks will never miss. So that is good for like when characters have evasion, like Fantasy Ida. If you have Bullseye, you will be able to hit them even if they have evasion. So that's what Bullseye is used for. Piercing shots. This is really good for ignoring barriers, damage down, and defense. So if Fantasy Kirishima has been a thorn in your side, if you get a character with piercing shot, like Fantasy Sue or Blue All Might, they will do the normal amount of damage they would have done anyways, and they will ignore defense. If you're going against a Fantasy Todoroki with barriers, you don't have to worry about the barriers because you just go through them. Piercing shot and Bullseye, two very important status effects in the game. Elasticity is underrated and really, really good. However, not on many characters, right? I believe, I could be wrong on this, it's only on Gentle Criminal. But basically what it does, increases their skill impact and defense relative to the amount their speed is increased. So if you just have a ton of speed on a character that has elasticity, they're going to have extra skill impact. Like I said, skill impact is very important because it takes that whatever damage number you have and multiplies it, and it also increases their defense relative to the amount of speed they have. So that can be very, 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 very good, right? Elasticity, underrated, very good, just not on very many characters. Stress, well, this doesn't exist on global, but when it does, yeah, I'll let you guys know. We'll talk about it then. For now, we're going to skip stress, but yeah. Multi-use skills. When using a skill, the character is able to use the skill X times in a row. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one either, honestly. I'm not sure. I should know what this one is, really. I'm not gonna lie. Multi-use skills. In my mind, I think of multi-hit skills, but I think that's different than what it's describing here. I don't think there's too many. I think this is relatively new, actually, maybe. I don't think there's too many, if any, characters that can use multiple skills in a row. This might just be an enemy thing. I don't think anyone in the game that we can use right now has a multi-use skill where you can use it one turn and then use it the next turn immediately after. So yeah, unless this is talking about multi-hit skills, but it's just worded weird. But yeah, I'm gonna honestly say I'm not sure on that one, guys. I don't. That feels weird. I didn't think I would understand any of these in here. I didn't look over this list ahead of time. But yeah, if anyone knows or thinks they understand that one, let me know down in the comments. I'll pin it if you guys do understand that one. Power down. Decreases character's power by X percentage. Once again, pretty simple. That basically takes, so all of these right here, power down, defense down, and speed down, take your base stats and lowers them by whatever percentage, meaning you're not going to hit as hard or you're not going to have as much defense or as much speed. Speed down is the biggest one, probably. You'll see it a lot in Ultra Arena. Next, we have critical hit rate down, plus ultra gauge down, plus ultra gauge down, plus ultra gauge fill rate down, and plus ultra gauge down. These are all kind of the same as what we saw up above, except for they were plus ultra gauge up, critical hit rate up. These are just the opposite, you know, decreasing crit hit rate by a certain amount, decreasing plus ultra gauge by a certain amount, so on and so forth. Then we have these status elements, burning and bleeding. Burning, character takes burning damage every turn. You can have 3 6-turn burns. It's pretty varied. Bleeding, this is probably one of my least favorite status elements in the game. I think it does less damage than burning does, and it's just, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of bleeding. I feel like there needs to be, at least burning has Hellfire, right, which makes it better. Bleeding doesn't really have a whole lot going on for it, unless we get a UR stain where like it says if they're bleeding, then you know, immobilize them or something. Then eventually it'll be sick, right? But for right now, bleeding, not my favorite. Bound, it's when you just bind a character and they can't move. It's essentially a stun, right? And they're released. The only difference is stuns will last even if a character dies, but if you kill the character who bound your character, then your character's released and no longer bound. So that's pretty much the difference between bound and stun. Other than that, they're pretty much the same. Skill sealed, character's action skills and plus ultra moves become unusable. One of the best, you know, status elements in the game to this day. Paralysis, character becomes paralyzed and unable to move. Fatigue stops characters plus ultra gauge from charging. I don't think I've actually seen fatigue in the game, really. I actually didn't know this. Yeah, was it in there? But I mean, probably an enemy skill. I don't think any of our characters right now, I'm almost like 99% sure none of our characters have the word fatigue in their kit that are usable, at least. So yeah, fatigue we don't really have that we can use. Charmed, medium chance the character becomes unable to use normal attacks. Meh. Charmed isn't great. You know what Charmed is good for? It was good back in the day when we had Kami and we needed extra status elements. That's what it was good for. Other than that, Charmed is kind of meh. And then we have Blind, which low chance characters' attacks will miss. Does not affect plus ultra moves. This is even worse than Charmed. I mean, it's just another one of those things. If you need a status element, there it is. But low chance characters' attacks will miss. Like, it rarely happens. They rarely miss, and it's rarely ever useful, right? Confusion is very good. Characters unable to tell the difference between opponents and allies and attacks randomly. This can last for multiple turns. Frozen, character is unable to move, and they are freed if the ice is attacked, but you are guaranteed whenever you freeze an opponent, if you didn't know this by the way, your next attacking that frozen opponent is guaranteed to be a critical hit. So Frozen, actually a really good status element. Fear, high chance that the character becomes unable to take action when the HP is 50% or less. So I mean, Fear is okay. We just don't see it on a whole lot of characters, and for the characters that fear is on, it's on villain characters who don't really get used. So I would like to see more fear in the game, but we just don't have it going on right now. Next, we have skill impact down, decreases character skill impact by whatever percentage. So this is the same things we talked about before. We talked about skill impact up, action skill impact up. Now it's just the opposite. Decreases the action skill impact. So I'm just going to go through these. Plus ultra move skill down, impact down. Cooldown time up, increases the amount of cooldown time, how many turns it takes to use your action skills again. Meat lump. This is a new status element. Character becomes relatively new in the game. Character becomes a meat lump and cannot move. Higher chance of becoming a meat lump if they have lower speed than the opponent who used the skill. They are released if the opponent is defeated or stunned. Meat lump is honestly a really good status element. Like really good. Max HP down. Decreases the character's max HP by a certain percentage. Skill seals down, resist down. Okay, so you can't resist skill seals as easily. Confusion resist down. You can't resist confusion as easily, right? Burn resist down, bleed resist down, paralysis resist down, bind resist down, freeze resist down, charm resist down, blind resist down, fear resist down, meat lump resist down, frostbite resist down. And then now we have our last two status elements that are actually worth mentioning. We have frostbite, which this is actually important. This actually used to be kind of big back in the day in Ultra Arena. Deactivates skill chain and makes character take X percentage of the damage they deal. It can actually still be kind of important in Ultra Arena nowadays. You don't see it as much. Maybe after this video we'll see a couple of people use frostbite characters, but deactivating a skill chain is massive because it puts them behind on their plus ultra turn, right? And putting other characters behind or enemies behind on their plus ultra turn gives you a plus ultra turn 1 turn earlier than them or 2 turns earlier than them, and you're going to do that much more damage. And so frostbite is actually very, very, very good in Ultra Arena. Then you have stun, which is our last status element. This one is relatively new, like meat lump, and this causes the target to faint and not be able to move. There is a higher chance to stun the opponent when landing a critical hit. So basically, if it says medium chance to stun in the kit and you land a critical hit, then it's actually a high chance to stun. So it's a pretty decent increase when you do land a critical hit, making stun a very good status element. And anyways, guys, those are all of the status effects in the game. It took us a minute to get through all of them, right? There's just a ton going on. I bet you never realized until this video how many status elements are actually in this game, like, and how many things you have to think about. But it's a decent amount of things going on in the game with the stat changes and stuff like that. But hopefully this gave you a little bit of insight. Hopefully this helped you guys out a little bit. You learned a little bit of something, found one thing useful out of this video. And if you did find even just one thing useful, please go down there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. I have recently passed 4,000 thanks to all of your guys' support. Like, thank you so much. It means the world to me. And I know I said a couple videos back I was going to do a house tour on my More DRC3 channel. That is still coming. I just honestly have been working and have not had a chance to put away all of my stuff in the house, and I don't want to show you guys a dirty house. So that video will be coming though. I have not forgotten about it. So if you guys do want to see that house tour, make sure you guys go and subscribe to my More DRC3 channel, my DRC3 Reacts channel as well. I will be uploading more videos on those channels as I get settled. I'll try to get more videos on this channel as well as I get settled, you know. So that is everything that's going on, guys. Thank you for watching. Peace.